Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. I'm your host, Jill Jardine, master's in counseling psychology, longtime astrologer, psychic healer, and yogi. Today's guest is Lori Spagna, a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual catalyst, intuitive guide, mentor, multi-dimensional channel, animal communicator, energy healer, and more. You're going to want to hear what she has to share, so stay tuned. Welcome to the episode featuring my guest, Lori Spagna, a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual catalyst, intuitive guide, multi-dimensional channel, animal communicator, energy healer, visionary lightworker, and starseed, who has transformed the lives of thousands of humans and animals via her channeled ascension guidance, intuition, sacred energy healing, dormant DNA activation, divine transmission, and animal communication and telepathy. Lori provides transformational experience, sacred energy healing, dormant DNA activations, and is founder of the Lightwork Sacred Mentorship for spiritual seekers who want to deepen their real, authentic spiritual connection using metaphysical tools and sacred energy healing so that they can break through barriers, heal, and transform their traumas, and live a soul-inspired, divinely aligned life and to become who they were born to be. If you want to work with Lori, contact her for more information at lorispagna.com. That's LORISPAGNA.com. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome my guest today on Cosmic Scene, Lori Spagna. Lori, welcome to Cosmic Scene. So glad to have you here.
Well, hello, Jill. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about our time together.
As am I, and as are our listeners. What I wanted to know is, how did you get into everything you're doing now as a spiritual catalyst, an intuitive, a multidimensional channel, a light worker, a visionary, a luminary, a mentor, a guide? It started all with animal communication, is that correct?
Well, actually, believe it or not, it started with mediumship. So what happened was my brother died of an unexpected drug overdose.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And yeah, I mean, when you process it through it, it's like the energy of that is so shifted, because I get it. That was his divine appointment with me. We had a divine appointment, and that was my divine wake-up call. So what happened was, once he transitioned, very quickly after, I started getting messages from him. And I didn't know what they were or how to make sense of it, but I stayed with it. So it took me about a year to unpack that, to realize that I was not making it up. And the big message he was saying to me was, you're on the same path as me. It wasn't that I was doing drugs, but I was working in corporate America. I was really miserable. And I was, making a 6-figure salary, but I was definitely on the hamster wheel of life, doing the slave driver game. I was drinking excessively, smoking excessively, massive amounts of pharmaceutical drugs from well-meaning doctors. Hair was falling out, thyroid was off, just a bazillion things wrong. I was doing all kinds of unhealthy behaviors, and I was miserable, crying every day. And through the year of communicating with my brother, his message was like, you need to change your ways or you're going to end up like me. So I did. I quit and I became a dog trainer. So that's why it did really start with the dogs, because after that year of working with him, I started working with dogs as a dog trainer. I was hired as a dog trainer, and I could immediately hear the dogs. And they started saying, you listen to us and we're going to teach you. So that's where it started.
Beautiful. So the mediumship came through your brother. Had you used that gift since then, since bringing through your brother's words of wisdom for you?
Well, what's so funny, Jill? In that first year, I had all kinds of so-called dead people coming to me and all kinds of stuff. And I just remember thinking, well, it was a little scary to me. I didn't know what to do with it, but I had a lot of dead relatives would come to me. I'll never forget Heath Ledger, if you remember that actor.
Oh, yes.
He came to me. I mean, there were just a lot of dead people who came to me. And at first I didn't really know what to do. Like I said, it took a year to kind of like, what is all this? I don't know. Am I making this up? Is this real? What am I supposed to do? And I just kept working with it. And I was self taught in that way. But I do get it. I really understand that I learned these gifts in other lifetimes,
Exactly.
and I mastered them in other lifetimes. And in this lifetime, they just kind of came online. And it was my brother's divine appointment with me, in a sense, his transition and whatever his soul had to progress. There's more there, but that helped awaken it within me.
Y-
That helped bring that on.
yes, I like that you say that you came in with these gifts, but that was the catalyst for you opening to your loaded eighth house in your natal chart and
Right.
some of your other
Right.
gifts.
It was a Saturn return period. This is when this started happening. It was my first Saturn return.
Right. And you had shared your Saturn is in a water sign that allows
Yeah.
someone to be very intuitive. So that's beautiful. Divine timing, as you said. So then you get guided to be a dog trainer, which I think is the Virgo in your chart. Virgo rules animals. And from there, the dogs started communicating with you and you started to get really
Right.
clear messaging. And how did that
Right.
evolve for you?
Well, the biggest message from the animals overall was and still remains to be that they're here, for the most part, is that they're here to help humans. So the animals, as I was working with the dogs, they would give me their human story and they would tell me everything that was going on with the humans. And that's why they were the way they were. So, in general, most of the time when an animal has a behavioral issue, it's because that behavior exists somehow in their family dynamic. Or if the animal has an emotional issue or some kind of like stress or anxiety or any kind of trauma, typically that energy is in the family home as well. And the family dynamic is working through it in some way. Animals are healers to the humans they live with. They're super psychic, they're super empathic, and they pick up their language is energy. So if a human has fear in their household, they're picking up that fear and they're displaying it in some way. And so it shows up in their bodies and their behaviors, etc. But this is all the stuff I was learning in those first few years. Then what happened was the animal communication was just a byproduct. It was just so natural because it was like it was there. I was just getting it from them. It was like I didn't really ever have to learn it, but I started getting into the healing arts after that because I realized that in order to help the animals, I needed to help the humans, and I had to find a way to bridge that gap. So I was working with my human clients. I was giving them animal communication readings, even though we were working on dog training. And I got into the healing arts and started developing all of those, skills as a healer, theta healing, the Akashic records, Reiki, oh my God, on and on. The list goes on. I developed my toolkit. And from there, what happened, I was just working on so much of my own personal development and personal growth and my own journey of healing my own self, of my own traumas and the wounded aspects of growing up in, like in your language, like my parents were born with Pluto in the house of Leo.
Right.
I think that's like, that's like the typical narcissist, right?
Yes.
So growing up in that type of family dynamic, I had so much of my own healing to do. So I just got better and better at the gifts in the pursuit of my own healing. And I started incorporating that more and more into my work to utilize with my clients. And it just kept expanding. The other piece that was so critical or pivotal in it is what I should say is that I never really had to learn that concept of being of service. That was just deeply ingrained in me. So I really wanted to help animals and I really wanted to help people. I really, really wanted them to benefit. So that was just a natural part when you really truly have a desire to serve and it's coming from a sincere and authentic place. That also amplifies the gifts, right? Brings them out.
Exactly. Service is the freedom of the soul, and it's through service that
Yes.
we get healed, and all those that we work with are receiving the healing. Especially, I love the background, your trainings, and the fact that you were self healing, and then you're sharing your evolutionary advancement with anybody working with you, which is how it that's how it actually works for people who may be new to all
Yes.
this, that as we work on ourselves, we have more to offer and more healing emanating from us, and we're transmitting more consciousness to other people. So it's essential to do your own work, and you constantly are doing this. This is your life's stream. It allows you to like continue to move through your own stuff as all your clients and people who work with you benefit. So let's flash forward. Then in the last, I don't know how many years, but you have been a luminary and a catalyst and a leader in the new consciousness paradigm. Some of us call it the fifth dimensional paradigm. Some call it the awakening. Some call it the consciousness shift. But you've been involved in this work for quite a while. And how did that show up for you? And how does it continue to come through you? And how do you help others with this information and transmission of the new consciousness and the new dimension?
Yeah, well, along that journey, at a certain point, like within a year of after my brother transitioned, sorry, what happened was I moved to Maui, and I was living there, and I had what you call a first contact experience, right?
Wow.
Which means like an actual on ship experience. And it was at that time when I realized, well, I really got it that humanity was going through a massive shift, and that there was help coming from off planet. And so part of that journey, part of that experience was like a reunion with Star Family that was going to allow me to be of service even greater. That's how I got into the whole ascension, new paradigm, fifth dimension and beyond stuff, because I never knew any of that stuff. I had no idea about any of that. And I definitely, before that, I didn't even know about, like all I ever saw was the movie E.T. I knew nothing about that stuff before then.
Wow. So you actually had contact. A lot of listeners may not even be familiar with this concept of that. Sometimes these advanced civilizations or advanced, I don't like the word extraterrestrials, but let's call them intergalactics. They will connect with human consciousness or human beings to transmit a message. And that sounds like an experience you had, or the experience you went
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, they don't like the word extraterrestrial either, actually. The benevolent ones typically refer to themselves as star family races. And they basically live on planetary bodies that we identify sometimes as stars. For example, the Pleiades is a whole star system. There's beings there, right? And so we don't know about them in the old paradigm. They don't interact with us in the old paradigm because that old paradigm is based in a reality. It exists simultaneously, right? We're overlapping with it right now. It exists in a reality where people are relatively unconscious, and that game that's coexisting with this reality is based in fear, domination, lies, manipulation, secrecy, coercion, and false authorities. So you have all these false authorities, whether they're government leaders, lawyers, doctors, teachers. We're not making the humans wrong. The systems are set up to control, dominate, manipulate through secrecy and coercion. So that old paradigm is based in that reality. These star family races don't interact in that old paradigm because in that reality, people are just choosing to play in the game of
Right.
unconsciousness.
Yes, and
So,
I'm so
right.
glad you're
So,
saying this, because the people can't hear that enough about what the old paradigm is and the fear factor and all of that. And just another piece is that the indigenous people are all familiar with the star people concept. They teach and they live that they've come from their star lineage. So it's very
mhm.
interesting that this is coming back to the planet after many years of it being coerced.
Yes. Yeah. So any one individual has to make a free will choice, and they have to make it over and over again. It's not something you can make once, that they are choosing to become conscious. That includes the choice that they're saying, I'm choosing to become sovereign, which basically means I am choosing to no longer have a false external authority dictate to me and tell me how to live my life or who I am or what the rules are. I'm going to choose to live in accordance with a so-called higher authority, which is the divine, and the universal or real true laws that govern this reality, which are in agreement with quantum physics, by the way.
Yeah.
And the moment a person makes those choices, and then you have to continue to make that choice, you also have to choose 100% responsibility.
Right.
You might not realize this at the initial phases, but it will come up. You have to choose responsibility, because as you level up into the new paradigm, and as you start recognizing there are real laws that govern this place that cannot be broken. These are not laws of man or human. They are laws of our universe, universal laws, unbendable, unbreakable. They govern. You live in accordance with those, and those are God's laws. As you do that, you have to take responsibility, because you realize, like, you're creating, you're not really creating. That's not the right word, because in fact, everything that has ever been created and ever will be created already exists. However, you are creating the life that you experience by lining up energetically with the experiences you're choosing, and by working in collaboration with source consciousness that is within. You're aligning with really what is available to you as a soul, and working through not only your soul's issues that your unique soul came here to work through, but you're working in collaboration with your own higher self as you navigate through out of the old paradigm, the density of that experience, and as you realign and level up into this new paradigm. So in the new paradigm, you're becoming more of the person you came here to be, the truest, realest, most authentic version of you that is really in harmony and alignment, in harmony with all the laws of the universe, and in alignment with the divine, the source that you are, the source within.
I love your description. I would call it becoming a soul infused personality, so that you're not really your
Mm-hmm.
personality, you're living your soul. And the other thing that
Mm.
I've noticed that people, when they start doing this process, one of the first places they might run up against some resistance, or they really have to release, is with the physical body. So what is your take on when people are doing the work, but then something in the physical body, like they get an illness, or that they hit up against a disease or
Mm.
another issue? So what is your take on that as one evolves into the fifth dimension?
Well, there are typically, in my experience, two reasons why anyone, and it doesn't matter if they're an animal, a child, an adult, why anyone gets sick physically. Either number one, if they're a really progressed, advanced being, a lot of times they'll take, and that's very rare,
Right.
really rare. They took something on that seems to be unhealable, either for the for the enjoyment of doing something that has never been done before by anyone. That's so rare. Or to somehow step into a new level of mastery to transcend the physical. Again, really rare. And in the masses, most of the time, it's because there's something unresolved that really needs to be paid attention to. So whatever it is that's unresolved is typically something they may have taken it on from another lifetime, or they may have taken it on from the lineage. In the case of a child, perhaps being born with something, they might have taken it on to heal their lineage. They might have taken it on from another lifetime, parallel existence. Or if it's more of an adult that developed, it's something that wants to be paid attention to that has not been paid attention to in the non-physical. In other words, they missed it or spiritually bypassed it or carpet swept it on the mental, on the emotional plane, either in this or another lifetime, or their lineage did. And energetically, they started carrying the density of that, the weight of it, until it got so heavy that it anchored into the physical body.
Thank you.
Does that make
Oh, yes.
sense?
Thank you for sharing. That was such a comprehensive explanation for people who may not even be aware of things such as lineage, taking on the lineage, or that, they need to heal something because it's, a lot of times emotional or mental stress or distress is stored in the physical body that way. So thank you for sharing that, Laura.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
I would love to just also add one other thing onto this that's so important, especially when someone has any kind of physical, doesn't matter, physical, emotional, mental. I am 100% certain that everything is healable. Everything. The issue is number one, is the person willing to do what it would take? Because not everyone is. And sometimes what it takes, if it's something that's really deeply repressed or suppressed, it could take a long time. And if somebody's been living with something for, let's say someone's been living with something for 20 years, our old paradigm has sort of, I'll use the word kind of brainwashed us to believe the idea of healing is like someone strolls up to a pulpit on a wheelchair and some religious person puts their hands on them and says a prayer, and 2 seconds later they pop out, hallelujah, I'm healed. That's not how it works, right? Because when something wants to be paid attention to, if someone's lived with something for, say, 20 years, it could take 10 years. Potentially doesn't have to, but that potential is there. So it's always a question is the person willing to do what it takes? And that's usually the biggest obstacle or barrier to the healing. And the other obstacle or barrier sometimes could be just something in their unconscious that's preventing them, some form of self-sabotage, or in the case of a smoker, for example, in what I've discovered in 100% of the cases is that there's usually a death wish in there. If the death wish isn't identified, an unconscious death wish, and pulled and cleared, that potentially could contribute to the person not getting a healing. So it's an art, and it's very comprehensive, but everything's healable. It just requires people to be willing to do what it takes.
Right. Thank you for that. While we're on the subject of the body, can we shift our conversation to the DNA, the role of our dormant DNA, and what is our original divine blueprint?
Oh, I love this conversation. So one of the most wonderful, amazing things, the most brilliant things about how magnificent the divine is that everything that any unique individual needs, whether they're an animal, a human, doesn't matter, is stored in their DNA. And they did that on purpose. It's done on purpose, right? Because everything you need is in your dormant DNA. But up until 2012, science only recognized the first two strands, right? Then in 2012, you start getting credible scientific journals publishing, there's these other 10 strands. We used to think they were or other 12 strands. We used to think they were junk. Now we know they're dormant. In the last few years, they started identifying additional codes in the DNA. And they're starting to realize that this is what's going on. There are mass studies of DNA going on Earth right now. This is part of like Ancestry and Me, and lots of these DNA testing companies. Right. They're owned even by the government, actually. I think they're all owned by the government. But even like the idea of extracting DNA on a global scale, right? We could talk about how that could be done with a Q-tip, for example, up someone's nose. The point is that we know that the DNA is the most prized possession, and it has a script in there that is dormant, waiting for each individual to say, I'm ready to claim my gifts. I'm ready to begin unlocking what's available to me. But none of that is even accessible. If we go back to the earlier part of our conversation, where the person has to start free will choosing, because free will is a law of this reality. And so a person has to say, I'm willing, I'm ready to start choosing consciousness. I'm ready to come out of, cynicism, skepticism, doubt, disbelief, and, debate, argument of whether it's real, and become conscious and become a student of my own divinity. So that's the step that starts giving them access to what's in their dormant DNA. The other key that unlocks the dormant DNA is compassion. Of course, you actually have to have compassion for yourself and for others. That's why all these collection efforts, it doesn't matter because you can't study this dormant DNA under the microscope. It's not available there to someone who hasn't unlocked compassion within themselves, or isn't truly looking for something from a heart-centered space to truly help and be of service. Regardless of that, the point is that all of our gifts lie beyond the first two strands of DNA. And when we talk about, we can unpack all the different strands, but overall, the third and fourth strands are really where you start working with the non-physical, where you start realizing that the non-physical has physicality
Right.
and is real, and there's realness in there, right? There's something like ghosts are real, entities are real, so-called dead people are real, loved ones, guides, angels. You start navigating that. Like, my thoughts are real, my emotions are real. That stuff matters. It's solid in a realm of non-physicality. That's like third and fourth. Then we start getting into 5D, you're like, okay, I'm kind of anchored into more service and care, compassion and love. I'm starting to work with this non-physical world. I'm opening up to, realizing I have to change my own thoughts, my own beliefs, my own emotions. I have to make these shifts. That's when you start opening up to greater gifts, Akashic records, um, you know, the healing arts. And it's not linear. It's not like one straight line, right? It's a nonlinear approach. But in any case, then when you start moving beyond that, you're getting into higher dimensional realms, right? You
Right.
can start interacting with star family races. You can start interacting in a more regular way with more of what I call your collective. So one of my favorite things is I channel more and more. My team is calling, the beings I channel through as just my collective. And sometimes Mother Mary's in there. Sometimes, various archangels are in there. Sometimes Melchizedek, the Melchizedek orders in there. Merlin, Enoch, major angels, archangels, all kinds of ascended beings, ascended masters. They're all part of my collective. Some of them come and go, and some of them are unique to me, my guides and my unique team. But I channel through a collective and can speak from the higher realms and share through what they're offering to help humans and animals as we're awakening into these higher realms. But we have access to that stuff when we start activating more of our DNA. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yes. What I hear you saying too, those so-called dormant latent DNA is actually energetic in nature. That's why it's confounding to anybody looking at it through the microscope, because it's not physical, but it's working on energy levels, all the various levels of energy connecting to the masters, the celestials, the divine ones, and all the other guides and angelics that help people. So that blows my mind. That thank you for that description. That was great.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's also all consciousness. So when we do energy healing, like I do DNA activations, the next one coming up is on 8/8, when we call that the Lion's Gate. It's just a divine appointment date. But the point, and it's labeled the Lion's Gate. I know
oh, I know
because
all
it's
about it.
during the
Uh, I've
right
been
the
doing
window of Leo,
activations for clients for
right?
years on the Lionsgate, right? The Leo.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome. Right. So when we anchor in enough DNA activation on any particular issue, or any particular type of code or codon, whatever we're being given to do, and we start passing it through our bloodlines, that's when it starts getting anchored into the physical world. And that's when an everyday scientist can start saying, like, oh, look what I found in the DNA. We never knew this was there. It's because enough humans came together with conscious free will and said, yes, we're saying yes to awakening this into our physical form. So we're anchoring it into the physical. And I've seen this happen over the years. Like, scientists discover new codes and new codons, and I'm like, we just anchored that in. We just anchored that in over the course of the past year. And and then we can kind of move on from this topic. Let me just say one other thing that's in the dormant DNA of every human and every animal. And it's not physically seen by science yet, but it will be: codes of immunity and imperviousness.
Oh,
So
yes.
codes of immunity and imperviousness to any and all diseases, viruses, etc.
But will they
Right.
see those? They may have other agendas that don't want that to come forth, correct?
Right. Well, you understand, the everyday person is who discovers it. Will it be allowed to be distributed and known to the
Right.
masses? Is the question. Will it be seen? Yes.
Yes.
It will be seen, it will be known. Will the people know it? The ones who will know it are the ones who choose consciousness. The ones who choose old paradigm will not know it.
Bingo. Have you ever wanted to study astrology? Do you know what your soul purpose is? Do you know what your gifts, talents, strengths, and weaknesses are? Do you want to find out? Everybody's talking about their chart. Now you can too. I'm offering a 6-module astrology course coming up in October 2023. You can go on my website, jilljardineastrology.com, and register on my astrology course and join the cosmic party. Welcome back. My guest is Lori Spagna. We're talking about all things consciousness. And now we're going to talk about the new economy, raising our vibrational frequency and expanding our resonance. What can you share with our listeners about that, Lori?
Yeah, well, the new economy, let's take this in chunks because the first part is the true new economy. And then the second part is the traditional sense of what we, humans identify as our economy. We want to address both areas. Okay. The new economy, in terms of is consciousness, right? Is perspective, is energetic vibration, is the willingness to, not just the willingness, the ability to expand into greater and greater capacity to hold, to embody, and to emanate greater degrees of light and consciousness. So the way we do that is similar to what we've been speaking about so far, but is to really work on clearing out, healing, resolving all those aspects of us that have kept us entangled in that old paradigm way of being, thinking, behaving, and awakening more of the new, what I call divine virtues, the virtuous behaviors, such as equanimity. When we're talking about the new economy, we understand that equanimity is part of that. So energetic frequency, vibration, consciousness are the most, and the divine virtues that come with that is really the new economy, because the more conscious you are, the clearer and higher your vibration is. And what that means is you're not carrying density. You're carrying much less density and much more light, which can also be enlightenment, but is literally, when we talk about no density, we're talking about egoic structure. We're talking about various degrees of fear, pain, suffering, worry, doubt, grief, regret, remorse, anxiety, blame, shame, arrogance, superiority, argument, debate, resistance, judgment, etc. That's all density.
Yes.
So you've cleared that stuff from your energy field. It just doesn't resonate for you. When you recognize it in another, it doesn't bother you. There's no resistance. It's just another form of energy that you really identify in the field, and actually in the presence, in your own presence, that stuff clears from others just organically. But regardless, that's what I'm talking about. When you're living free from that density, you're able to hold more light, you're able to embody more of that light, more of the frequencies and bandwidths of energetic lightness, and therefore you have much greater perspective. So you're not functioning from this limitation. And because of that, your ability to, asking for the right words here, your capability to navigate the physical known world brings you only into experiences that in general are enjoyable, pleasurable, safe, positively uplifting. It's not that they don't provide contrast. So contrast is what we've been living in, right? You'll still have contrast, opportunities to learn and grow and expand. But overall, those opportunities will be more positively uplifting and much less painful. And even when there is degrees of pain, typically some form of pain, upset, emotional upset, etc., that will be resolved very quickly for you so that you can continue to grow and expand. See, so that is the new economy so far. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. So again, it's all energetic. It's not about worrying about, oh, what am I going to do? It's all like, how am I using my energy, my time, and is it uplifting? Is it giving me enjoyment? Does it basically feel?
Or how is it serving me?
How does it serve?
I'm sorry,
yeah.
to cut you off.
No,
right.
that's
how
excellent.
How is it serving me? Because If there's contrast there, which means there's some form of constriction or contraction, or might be some kind of emotional or mental pain or anxiety or upset, but you're using that energy, as you said, to serve you so that you can move beyond it and expand. That's the new economy. The old poverty economy is, the contrast of that is the world's going to hell in a handbasket. You have to be very afraid. There's all kinds of problems. You don't know if there's going to be a sinkhole opening up beneath you, the next hurricane, the next tornado. Oh my God, there's another rule or law. You're going to lose everything. You're going to get sued. Drama, chaos, high anxiety. What's that word when someone comes to the table and it's like alert? There's this incredible, like, oh my God, loosey goosey energy, right? So that's the contrast there.
Chaos,
right?
yeah.
Chaos, right? Alertism, beyond alert for this terrible, horrible thing that could happen any moment. That's the contrast. So now that's an extreme contrast.
Fatalistic, fatalistic
yes,
consciousness. Yeah.
yes. So now, if that's kind of the new economy and the contrast between the two in the new economy, the old economy, or when I talk about the old economy, in this case, I'm talking about old paradigm economy, which we measure in terms of dollars, right?
Right.
We measure that in terms of dollars, gold, silver, now Bitcoin or whatever. Understand that whole economy, the physical economy, is obviously shifting because that old economy was based in tyranny disguised as some form of capitalism, or even now not disguised, right? As it could be disguised as a democracy, but really it's an oligarchy, right? Because that's the whole game of secrecy, coercion, manipulation, right? It's called a capitalistic game where everybody gets to prosper, but it's set up for the good of the few to the harm of the many. Right. Service to self above service to the good of all. So the new paradigm is service to the greater good of all, with ideally with harm to none. Old paradigm is I, me, mine. I don't care who gets screwed. That system is slowly collapsing. We can see it.
Yay. It's about time.
But and this is a challenge because the thing is you look at that system, and if you're in it and you're playing that old game, you're still using, even in this new paradigm right now that's overlapping, we're still using monetary exchange, but in a whole new way. We know, like, I don't want money from someone I can't help. I only want for the highest good of all. I would never want to take money from someone who's not giving it to me of their free will choice, saying, I know you can really help me and I want you to help me. And I'm going to provide this fair energy exchange that feels good and right to both of us in ways that are good and right, that we all prosper. And when I'm working with them, I'm like, let this person receive maximum benefits because that's what I want for them. And through my service and contribution. Old paradigm, I just, there's swindlers, thieves. I just had a client who just literally, I told her right before, this, she was on a dating thing. And I said, you're being scammed. Don't give him any money. And next session, she found out he was a scammer. So this is what I'm saying. That's old paradigm. I will sneak, cheat, and lie. I will steal, get whatever I can. I don't care if my fellow human suffers. How can I manipulate to get money? The whole system is set up that way.
That's right.
And the people who are playing in that game are swimming in sort of like a cesspool. So the way you get out of that game, again, we go back to the beginning part of our call. You have to be willing to make a change within yourself, shift your consciousness, choose sovereignty, choose of your own free will that you're going to take 100% responsibility for your experience. And in that, you embody the virtues that are required to function at this higher, pure frequency. And that includes you will do no harm to another because you know that it would be harm to yourself. That's the way those laws work.
Yes. And
you would never do harm to another. I would never want to do, regardless of whether it came back at me. I would never want to do harm to another, period.
Right.
That's how we function in these higher realms. And what happens is part of the innate protection. This is part of Gaia, Sophia, Mother Earth, how she's really caring for her children, which we are her children, us humans. She's allowing those of us who are living in harmony in this way with her, caring about the earth, caring about one another, to prosper. Our bodies are healthy. We are immune and impervious to things that are happening in the physical world, such as viruses and diseases overall. We are prospering in all kinds of ways. Our expansion, our growth, our evolution, we are benefiting. We are helping others. We are being the gift of being able to be of service. What a wonderful gift. Because as we said, it's the fastest road to joy, being of service. It really is. It's the fastest road to inner happiness and fulfillment, being of service. So that's what's happening. This old economy is collapsing, and the people who are caught up in it are unfortunately suffering. And the idea here is to sort of help as many as we can, by expanding this consciousness, which is why we're here now.
Right. And I love what you said, the intention when you're working with someone. If you'd like to say that one more time, and maybe that's a good way to go out. The intention when you do an energy exchange or an exchange for money, what should that intention be? To be as clear and the flow to be as pristine as possible. You said it earlier. I'd just love to hear you say it one more time.
For the maximum benefits, it's probably the words I use. I'm
Right.
all concerned with
Right.
zero harm. But in my work, I'm always, what is God, Source, Creator's will for them? Because I'm a spiritual practitioner, right?
Right.
But always, you want everyone to receive the maximum benefits, right? I mean, sometimes that's not always appropriate if you've got someone in a critical situation, right? They maybe can't handle the maximum benefits, but what's unique and appropriate for them at that time for their most benevolent best? Always with zero harm. These are the governing laws in this new paradigm. I mean, these aren't the exact laws, but this is how they work.
Wouldn't it be great if everybody started working with these? What a different world we'd be living in. We'd certainly be in fifth dimension, heaven on earth.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is the trajectory for humanity. That is the trajectory for humanity. However, humans must choose it. And if they're not going to choose it, that's their choice too. But then they're functioning in a society that is, in a sense, self-imploding. You can see it.
Right. Lori,
it's collapsing, right?
This has been phenomenal information you've shared with my listeners today. I am so full of gratitude for having you on today. I would like you to share, how can people work with you or be in touch with you or see you in your next venue? Please let everybody know.
Yeah, well, first of all, my website is lorispagna.com. It's my name. And I have a YouTube channel. I work with people who really are interested in serving and contributing to humanity, like really high-powered entrepreneurs, leaders, change makers in the world who know they have something fabulous and phenomenal to offer, and they really do get it. They want their clients to really, truly benefit. They really want their community to grow and benefit. They are service oriented. The world matters to them, the people in their community, whether it's their children, their loved ones, their family, their animals, or the clients they serve, they matter. So they're coming from service. They want to make a bigger impact. And they're basically, trying to overcome that part of themselves that maybe is like slave driver, workaholic, hardworking, maybe perfectionist, right? And they're just tired of that way of operating because in their heart of hearts, they know they have something amazing. They want to bring it forward and they don't know what's blocking them, right? It's the energetics. So I work with them to help them come into alignment with the divine within, and to really claim from within them the self-sourced wisdom and that energetic alignment that really allows them to bring through what their unique soul is here for, so that they can really achieve their highest fulfillment. So I would love to hear from anyone who's interested in that, because those are the people who I work with. And I use all the tools. And I love astrology. It's one of my favorite tools. And I love numerology and I love namology. Those are great tools. But most of all, it's really energetic alignment. And that's how I help people. So yeah, and their animals too. So if they want to meet me over at lorispagna.com, I would love to get to know them there. And of course, I have on 8/8. I know you mentioned that as well, Jill. Such an important date, right? It's the
Right.
Lion's Gate. So that's the next live DNA activations webinar. I do those a couple times a year, usually on, like we just did it on the 777 triple Stargate portal, and the next one on the 8/8. That's my next live event. And those are always by webinar. Most of my stuff I do pretty much by webinar for the most part. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Lori, thank you for your
Awesome.
offerings. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
your service to humanity. And thank you for being our guest here on Cosmic Scene.
Thanks so much for having me, Jill. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode featuring my guest, Lori Spagna. Remember to subscribe, download, share, and give us a 5-star review. This is Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine signing out, sending you multi-dimensional healing through the quantum field.